Hi. In previous Global Protect configuration demonstration, actually I used local user database. But in this demonstration, actually I'm using the previous Global Protect configuration, but I'm showcasing how to use Active Directory as the user database. So actually, what happens is, let me showcase this using my whiteboard. One moment. Okay, so here, no, actually, let me erase this. Let me get the pen tool. Okay, here what happens is, in previous scenario we use local database. So in that case, actually we created users within the firewall. So let's say this is the firewall, and this is the firewall, and I use local user database within the firewall. Local user DB. But in this scenario, actually, we are using Active Directory as the user database. So let's say you have a domain controller here. But when it comes to Palo Alto, we can use many directory services. But in this demonstration, we are using Microsoft Active Directory. Let's say this is your Active Directory or the domain controller, DC. And we are, let's say someone is connecting to the Global Protect. This is your Global Protect implementation within the Palo Alto firewall. Let's say someone is connecting by entering username and the password. So then this username and the password is going to be validated against the Active Directory user database, because in Active Directory we have users. So I'll showcase how to create a user within the Active Directory. And so once we got the response from the Active Directory whether this authentication request is correct or not. Based on that response, the users will be connected to the Active Directory, not Active Directory but to the Global Protect, or users will be denied to connecting to the Global Protect. So actually that is based on the domain controller response. So that's what we are going to configure here. So we are using the previously configured Global Protect configuration in order to demonstrate this scenario. Okay, let's start the configuration now. Okay, let's log into the firewall. Here we have the firewall. So actually we need to create something called LDAP profile here. So you have to go to device tab. Under this the server profile section on your left side, you can find this LDAP option. So you have to create a LDAP server profile. So let me add. And in order to do that, we need this details. You have to have the server IP, and also the type of the server. So in our case, that is Active Directory. And also we need to have this base DN, but don't worry about the base DN. So actually the base DN means the simple thing, when it comes to Active Directory, it's a tree. It's a tree means you have this your main domain. So let me showcase that. Actually you don't have to think about that too much. Let me type active. So once you type active, you can see this option, Active Users and Computers. So let me click on that. So here we have this this is my the domain, the Active Directory domain. So firewall-life.local. So actually this is the place where this Palo Alto firewall is going to search users from, because under this main domain we have many things, like we can have users, we can have organizational units, and so many things. So here the base DN should be this. Let me write it here, because my domain is firewall-life.local. So then my base domain, my base DN should be. So let me write here. But I'll tell you, because you can use one command in order to get the base DN. And but here as a logical thing you can understand, because actually my domain is firewall-life.local. So my base DN is you can type DC equals firewall life sorry firewall life, comma, dc equals local. Okay, this is the base dn. So that means, actually, under this point, I'm having all the computers or users or whatever. So that is called base dn. So then, let me go back. Okay, so let me go back to the firewall. Here, right here. Okay, so then actually we need to have bind dn. Bind dn means actually the user that we are using in order to do the authentication, because actually firewall should authenticate to the domain controller in order to uh, you know get the users authenticated. I mean, when a user is connecting to the global protect, so the firewall should pass those details to the active directory and check whether these details, the details that user is passing is correct. So in order to do that, actually, firewall should have a appropriate user here, or the user who has appropriate permission in order to do that operation. So that is called bind dn. So we can find the bind dn. It's easy. So before that, I had to create a user. So let me go here and let me right click on these users and let me create a new user. So let's put the first name Sagar and the last name Sagar, uh, let's say uh, Tendulkar. uh, okay, so then let me put the logo and username is Sagar. Okay, this is the user. So let me click next, and let me remove this user must change password at next logon. So I'm removing that. So let me put the password here. Okay, so let me click next and finish. So now we have the user. But the thing is, actually, in order to do that operation, so I mean, in order to verify these user credentials against the active directory, so actually this user should have these permissions. So let me go to properties section and then go to member of tab, and this user should be belongs to distributed com users. So you can just type distributed and check names, distributed com users, and then this should user should be in the server operator group as well, server operator, and also event log readers, event log readers. So actually you must put this user into these groups. By default the user is under the domain users, but you have to put this user into the distributed com users, and event log readers, and also the server operators. So then let me click apply and okay. So now that's fine. And also you have to get the bind dn. Actually you don't have to get the base dn, it will be automatically propagated. So in order to do that we have to get the bind dn. So let me go here and let me go to account section. Actually you can use this as the bind dn, sagar at firelife.local. So this can be used as the bind dn, and the password. And let me go back here to the firewall. And before that, actually, before putting the user here, and we need to create the service route. The service route means, actually, let me show let me explain here. Let me remove this. Okay, service route means, actually, in our setup, in our setup here, so actually the connection is like this. We have the firewall here. We have the firewall. This is the Palo Alto firewall, and we have our untrust interface here, and here we have our management interface, and also here we have a trust interface. So actually, our active directory or the domain controller is connected here. It is connected to this network, I mean this trust interface network. So let's say it is here. This is my domain controller, Actually my firewall needs to contact the domain controller in order to do this, authentication request verification. So in that case, actually my this the request or this domain controller request which is generated from the firewall. So actually firewall needs to contact the domain controller. In order to do that, firewall needs to create this connection. So in order to create the connection, actually we have to ask the firewall, please initiate this request using this interface, because actually this is a firewall, right? Firewall has many interfaces. So actually we have to tell the firewall using which interface this request should be initiated. So actually we have to tell using this trust interface only you have to create the you have to initiate the request to the domain controller, because actually the trust interface is which is connected to the domain controller. Here this is our domain controller. But if the firewall is going to initiate the connection from the management interface, this is the management interface. So actually the management interface cannot reach the domain controller, because it is not connected to this domain controller network here. So because by default what happens is when firewall initiate a connection to certain service, like if firewall wants to download some dynamic update, or firewall wants to contact a domain controller, or firewall wants to send some DNS query. So in that case, actually firewall is by default initiating connections using this management interface. But actually in this case, since the management interface does not have any connection here to the domain controller, so we have to ask firewall, please initiate the connection using your trust interface here, this place. So then the firewall can contact this domain controller, because it is the same network. So that is called service route. That is called service route. So let me showcase how to, the change the service route here. Let me go back to the firewall. You have to go to device tab and you have to go to setup, and here we have a tab called services. So you have to go to services tab, and here services features, and you have to click on the service route configuration. By default use management interface for all, but I'm not going to change it. Let me cancel it. Let me configure the I had to do that, but I'll showcase that. Let me go to my domain controller. No, let me go to firewall. I need to create the LDAP profile first. Let me go to device tab, and under the server profiles we have LDAP profiles. Let me add it here. I'm just putting the name. You can use whatever your name, whatever your required name. And here also I'm putting this easy, and my the IP address of the domain controller is 192.168.100.150, and the default port is 389. I'm using that. And here you have to remove this check mark, because actually require SSL/TLS secure connection. Actually at this moment we are not using the SSL/TLS secure connection. Actually if you are using that, I think you have to change the port number as well, but here we are using plain text connection. And you have to select the type should be Active Directory. And base DN, you do not have to worry about the base DN, you have to worry about the bind DN. Actually we got the bind DN from the Active Directory itself. So let me go back and get it again. You click on start and you can type active, so then you can find this Active Directory users and computers here. Actually I'm speaking louder because actually raining here, so that's why. So here let me go to Sagar Tendulkar and right click, and let me go to properties, and let me go to account. Here you can see this is the this is the bindian Sagar at firewalllife.local. So let me go back to the firewall and let me put it here, Sagar at firewalllife.local, and then a password, the user's password here. Okay, so now it's fine. So once I click on this, I should be able to get the base DN, but before that, here actually I can't get it, because actually I told you that we have to change this service route, but we didn't do that. So what I can do is I just I'm going to just click OK, and then I'm going to this setup and services and service route configuration, and let me customize it here. So because actually I need to initiate this request using let me go back to my whiteboard. I should initiate this request using trust interface of the firewall here. So let me show that this is the place we need to initiate the request. because actually this is the network. My trust interface of the firewall is connected to the domain controller, the same network. So because by default, what happens is the firewall is going to initiate this domain controller request or the LDAP request using its management interface. Actually, I don't need this to be happen because actually this firewall management interface has no connection to the domain controller. It's a separate network. So I think you got the idea. So let me go back here and let me go to this LDAPs option, and this is a use default. I have to change it to Ethernet 1/2, and this is the trust interface, and let me click OK, and let me commit first. uh, so we have to wait for this commit to be completed. So it's 75. Okay, almost done. 99% completed. Okay, it's done. So let me go back to this LDAP profile, and let me see whether we can get the base DN. Okay, now you can see now we are getting the base DN. It's the, as I already told you, that base DN is file live local. So this is the base DN. Now it's fine. So let me click OK. And the thing is, if you want to see whether this is working fine, I mean whether this user can user can authenticate, or user can send these authentication requests from the users, from the the global protect users into the active directory and get the responses, or whether this user has the adequate permission. So you can check that using this option. You have to go to device tab, and you have to go to left side menu, and there's something called user identification. So actually this is we are going to configure later, because for this moment actually we do not need it. And you have to go to this group mapping settings, and you have to click add, and this is for just temporary purpose, because we just need to see whether this user, this Sagar Tendulkar user can should have, I mean whether this user has access to do this required operation using these the groups that we assign to that user. So you have to select the LDAP profile here, and then you have to go to group include list, and you should be able to make this expanded here. See, you can expand it here. So that means actually you have the access. So let me cancel these, and let me go to setup, and let me change the service route. Actually I just want you to showcase that. Let me select the management again, use default, and let me click OK, and put use management interface for all, and let me click OK. Actually I'm just going to verify that. So actually we need to change the service route. So then that you have to do it, because otherwise most of the configurations, so we miss that. We miss the service route configuration. So we think that whatever the user that we configured is wrong, or the permissions that we assign are wrong, or we think like that. But we have to think about the service route as well, because if the firewall can't contact this domain controller, so we can't do nothing, we can't do anything. So let me go to this this user identification section. Actually this is for testing purposes. I mean this user identification configuration is not required for this one, but it is required for some other thing. Let me select the DZ, and let me go to group include this. This should not work now. See, now it is trying, but this firewall cannot expand that, because actually a firewall cannot contact the domain controller, because this management now see fail to connect to this server. So let me cancel here. So let me go back to service route configurations, and let me put the customize option, and let me put the interface. Now it's fine. So let me commit. uh, okay, almost done. Okay, now let me go back here, user identification. Let me add, and let me select the this is the profile which we created previous step. And let me go to group include list. Let me try to expand it here. Now it's working. Okay, actually we are using this option in order just to check for the moment. Okay, let me go back to LDAP profile. Now it's fine. So then what we have to do is we have to create authentication profile here. Authentication profile. So previously we created a local database profile. So let me add a new profile. Let me put let's say DC, and type should be LDAP, and the server profile is our LDAP profile. And this logging attribute should be XAM account. Actually, we can find it from the internet. Palo Alto Global, LDAP logging attribute. So you have to, you should not remember those things. You can find it from the internet, because this is should be the logging attribute. And let me put it here. And then here you have to put none. You have to put none. Okay. So then you have to go to this advanced section, and you have to select for the moment, let's allow all the users for the authentication. So let me go back to authentication again. Okay, now all the users are allowed, to connect to the Global Protect if the user is going to be authenticated properly with the Active Directory or the domain controller and authentication. This section is now fine. Let me click OK. So now we have this authentication profile. So let me go here. Let me go here and select the Global Protect portal, and let me change the authentication profile here. So let me remove the previous one, delete, add, and let me put GP, the name GP, and the authentication profile, that is GPDC. Let me click OK. It's fine. And let me go to gateways, because actually we have two components within the Global Protect. So we have to change both the components, and let me delete it here. Let me add and put the name GP. Let me select the new authentication profile, and let me click OK. Now we are done with the configuration, because now we are the Global Protect is going to use Active Directory as the Active Directory as the user database for the Global Protect. So let me click commit. So actually now we have to create a user, because actually previously we create the user, that's for the authentication purpose. The Sagar is the user which is the user which we uses to integrate this Palo Alto firewall into the Active Directory. So then the firewall has the permission to query the database and query whether this the user's entered credentials are fine or not. But actually now we are creating user that is totally for the Global Protect. Let's say you have a user who needs Global Protect access, so then you have to create the user within the Active Directory. Actually, in normal scenario in a company, actually all the users are having these user names created within the Active Directory. But since this is our lab setup, actually I have to create the user here. Let me go back to Active Directory. So let me create another user. Let's say let's put the name. Let's go here, and let's say the username is Samyak, and the surname is Suresh, and the username is Samyank. Okay, and here let me click next, and let me uncheck this thing, because I don't want user to change the username, password. And let me enter the password here. Okay, now it's fine. Like next, finish. Okay, done. So now what we are going to do is, now we are going to connect to the Global Protect using this agent. So we are going to use that user Samyang. Actually here the previous it was connected, so let me disconnect it. So let me open gpfilelife.com. Let me click connect. It's connecting. It's asking for the username as a password. I'm using the username Samyang. I think you saw that for the moment actually we are not using this local database. Oh, anyway, let me remove this authentication profile as well. So let me come in, because now you know that actually we are using the Active Directory for the authentication. While this committing is being done, so let me go to this authentication profile and show you. Now here actually we have this LDAP profile here, and the actual profile is domain controller which we created within the LDAP section. So let's check whether our commit is done. Oh, it's almost done. It's 99%. Okay, now it's done. So let me go back to the Global Protect agent, and let me try to log into the Global Protect using my Active Directory username, password, Samyang, and I'm putting my password here. I should be able to connect. Let me connect. Oh, I think what happened? So So let me try, because actually it didn't work. It didn't work. So let me try again. Samya. Samya. Okay, let me enter my password here again. Connect. I think we did it everything. Yeah, it's connected. Now it's connected. So actually, what happens is, let me go back to my whiteboard. In this scenario, let me remove this first, and let me draw it again. What happens is, here we have our Active Directory. I'll show that within the firewall logs as well what happened in that scenario. So here we have the firewall, and here we have our trust interface, and here we have our domain controller or the Active Directory. Let's say DC, and this is our global protect connection within the firewall or the global protect configuration. So one of the users are connecting to the global protect, and the file is going to prompt for the username and the password. So the user is going to enter his domain controller or the Active Directory username and passwords. That is Samyang is the user and the password. So then the firewall is going to query the Active Directory whether this entered username and the password are correct. So if that is correct, so the domain controller is going to send that response back to the firewall, and the firewall is going to allow this user to connect to the global protect. So that's what happened. So let me go back and show that within the firewall log as well. Let me go to monitor and let me go to system logs. It says, let's say auth fail, because this is the previous thing. I think sometimes we enter the wrong password there. And this is auth success. It says authenticated for user Samyang auth profile GPDC. That is our LDAP profile. LDAP profile integrated authentication profile, and it is succeeded. So now we are connected. So if I go into network and the gateways and here remote users, we should be able to see the user here. See, now we have the user Samyang here. I think you got the idea how to integrate Active Directory into the Palo Alto firewall in order to authenticate Global Protect users or the remote access users. Okay, thank you for your time, and let's meet in the next configuration or the demonstration.